Imagine for a second right now that you are deep, deep underwater.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It's dark, it's incredibly quiet, and you're just completely weightless. And then, without any warning whatsoever, a giant hand just reaches down, grabs you by the collar, and yanks you violently up to the surface.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right into the blinding, freezing, incredibly loud reality of the day.
That sounds absolutely terrifying.
It is. But that essentially is what we expect our brains to handle every single morning when the alarm goes off.
Which is wild when you put it like that.
Right. And frankly, most of us are totally terrible at it. But a really fascinating look at this exact struggle recently caught our eye. It's a source called the English podcast One Guide to Morning Routines.
Yeah, this source is brilliant. They profile two specific hosts, Ahmed and Amina, and looking at their mornings is honestly like holding up a mirror to the two wolves fighting inside all of us at 6 a.m.
It really is. You have Amina, who embodies like structure and responsibility. She is the classic early bird archetype.
Totally. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have Ahmed.
Oh, Ahmed.
Yeah, he is admittedly chaotic. He's deeply reluctant to wake up, and he openly treats his mornings as this desperate daily battle for survival.
Which I think a lot of us can relate to. So the mission for our deep dive today isn't just to recap their habits. We want to extract the underlying biology and psychology of how you start your day.
Exactly, to find the real mechanics behind it.
Right, and uncover the practical takeaways that can actually help you conquer your own mornings rather than feeling like your morning is conquering you. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how we wake up today as adults, we actually have to go backward.
Backward.
Yeah, we have to look at the foundational programming of how we were originally taught to wake up.
Oh, right. And that programming is almost universally external. Like in the source material, both Ahmed and Amina reflect on their childhood mornings.
Yeah, and what becomes immediately clear is that they weren't, waking up. They were being woken up.
It was a forced extraction from sleep. Amina vividly remembers her mother waking her up very loudly, telling her she was late, even when she wasn't actually late.
Just instantly injecting panic into the nervous system before she even opened her eyes. That's so intense.
It is. And this is where we really start seeing the origins of their specific behaviors, which brings up the core terminology from the source. They talk about having a morning routine, which is simply the activities you do every morning.
Right, like a set schedule.
Exactly. And the goal of a routine is to build a habit, meaning something you do regularly without really thinking about it. But as kids, those habits were forced on them.
Yeah, like Ahmed, he had what he calls the classic mom move applied to him.
The blanket pull?
Yes, having his blanket physically pulled away from his body, and he would pull the blanket back, his mother would pull it again, and he'd even resort to, pretending to be sick.
Which he admits never worked once.
Never worked. But, isn't the pulled blanket exactly what adult life feels like?
What do you mean?
Well, we're lying there, we're comfortable, we're warm, and suddenly a massive adult responsibility like a job, a mortgage, an urgent email, it just yanks the covers off of us.
Oh, that is a great point.
It really makes me wonder if Ahmed's modern-day struggle to wake up is actually just a continuation of that childhood rebellion.
I mean, biologically and psychologically, we carry those conditioned responses with us. If your foundational experience with the morning was built on conflict,
like fighting your mom for the blanket.
right, fighting an external force to stay in your safe, unconscious state, your nervous system literally learns to associate waking up with an immediate threat or demand.
So as an adult, with total control over his own schedule, he's still fighting.
Exactly. That external force of the parent has simply been internalized. The resistance remains exactly the same, but now he's just rebelling against himself.
Wow. Which brings us to the first battlefield of the adult morning. The conscious choices we make the very second that alarm clock goes off.
Right, and just to use the source's definition, an alarm clock is simply a device that wakes you up. But how they use it is where the contrast between Amina and Ahmed becomes so stark, it's almost funny.
It really is. Amina wakes up after the first alarm. She's just up. But Ahmed...
Yeah, Ahmed starts by saying he uses the snooze button. Snooze meaning delaying the alarm for a few minutes.
Right. And he says he hits it 3 times, but then immediately confesses it's actually 5 times. 5 snoozes.
It's a lot.
If his alarm goes off at 6 a.m., he is spending nearly an hour of his morning in this terrible, fragmented state.
Yep.
And he blames it entirely on the fact that he can't sleep early because, quote, YouTube exists.
Which is so relatable.
Totally. But snoozing like that just feels like a self-inflicted wound, doesn't it?
It's actually worse than a self-inflicted wound. It's biological sabotage.
Wait, sabotage? How?
Well, when Ahmed hits that snooze button, he isn't just delaying the day. He is fundamentally confusing his brain's sleep architecture. Human sleep operates in cycles, typically around 90 minutes long. So when an alarm wakes you up, you are pulled out of that cycle. But when you hit snooze and close your eyes again, your brain doesn't just pause. It immediately attempts to plunge back into a brand new deep sleep cycle.
But the snooze button only gives you what, like 9 minutes?
Exactly, 9 minutes, which by the way is a historical relic from the mechanical gear limitations of early clocks, not a biological standard.
Wait, really? That's wild.
Yeah, so 9 minutes later, the alarm goes off again, violently ripping the brain out of the very beginning of a deep REM cycle. And this causes a phenomenon called sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia. That sounds heavy.
It feels heavy. Your brain is flooded with adenosine, a neurotransmitter that promotes sleep. When you continually hit snooze, you're essentially stacking sleep inertia on top of sleep inertia.
Oh, so you're just piling on the tiredness.
Exactly. It can take hours for the brain to clear that fog, which is why Ahmed feels so miserable when he finally does get out of bed.
Well, Amina bypasses that entirely.
Yeah.
Because her first action is completely physical and environmental. She drinks water and then she immediately opens the curtains. She is utilizing natural sunlight to wake up.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah, whereas Ahmed's very first action is entirely digital. He grabs his phone, he checks his messages, the news, the weather, and he casually admits he might spend an hour on social media before even getting his feet on the floor.
And the mechanism behind Amina's routine is crucial here. When sunlight hits the eyes, specifically the melanopsin receptors in the retina, it sends an immediate signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain.
Okay, you lost me a bit with the biology there. What does that actually do?
Simply put, it completely halts the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone, and it triggers a spike in cortisol.
Cortisol, the stress hormone.
Yes, but in the morning, a cortisol spike is exactly what you want. It's the biological signal to boot up the system. Ahmed, on the other hand, is flooding his brain with blue light from a screen.
Which is not the same as sunlight.
Not at all. It's an entirely different spectrum. But more importantly, he's flooding his brain with external information.
Now, I have to push back on the phone being the absolute villain here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Amina's routine sounds lovely, but isn't Ahmed checking the weather and the news technically a way of preparing for the day? I mean, is scrolling on the phone really that much worse than the modern digital equivalent of walking over and looking out the window to see what the world is doing?
That's a fair question, but it's an entirely different cognitive mechanism. Looking out a window gives you passive, immediate information about your local environment. It requires very little from your brain.
Okay, I see.
But opening a smartphone and checking the news or a social media feed, that demands active, high-level cognitive processing and emotional regulation.
Oh, right, because you're reading about, like, global events and personal messages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before Ahmed has even hydrated his body or cleared his sleep inertia, he is forcing his brain to process global crises, interpersonal messages, and algorithmic content designed to spike his dopamine.
That sounds exhausting when you put it like that.
It is. He is exhausting his prefrontal cortex, which is his decision-making center, before he has even stood up.
It's like trying to run a marathon before you've eaten breakfast.
That's a great way to put it.
Speaking of which, once you actually do get out of bed, the body needs activation. And the gap between reality and expectation when it comes to morning fitness and diet in this source material is genuinely hilarious.
Oh, it really is.
When they discuss exercise, Amina is remarkably honest. She admits she only exercises, well, specifically just stretching 1 or 2 times a week. It's a very modest, highly realistic routine.
Right. And then there's Ahmed Jeddah.
Yes, Ahmed, who proudly claims he does morning walks daily.
Daily.
But when Amina presses him on it, he clarifies that he does these daily walks strictly, quote, in his imagination.
Which is just, I mean, the man is doing mental laps while lying completely still in bed.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I think setting that imaginary goal is actually a massive trap that a lot of us fall into.
Oh, absolutely.
We lie in bed and set these incredibly ambitious mental goals for the day. You know, like today I'm going to run 5 miles, learn a language, and meal prep for a month.
The classic over-planning.
Right. And you give yourself the moral license of having planned to run, which makes you feel good enough to just roll over and go back to sleep. Right. You satisfy the intention without ever executing the action. Do you think setting an imaginary goal is worse than setting no goal at all?
Biologically speaking, yes. That's the exact danger of visualization without execution.
Wow, really?
Yeah, when you vividly imagine doing the healthy thing, your brain releases a tiny surge of dopamine. It tricks your nervous system into feeling a false sense of
So
accomplishment.
your brain thinks you actually went for the walk.
Basically, you literally get the chemical reward of the walk without taking a single step, which inherently reduces the biological motivation to physically get up and do the work. The fantasy becomes a substitute for action.
That is so dangerous. And when you substitute action with imagination and then follow it up with terrible fuel, things really start to break down. Let's look at their breakfasts.
Oh, the breakfast differences are huge.
Amina prefers a very structured, balanced meal. Eggs, toast, fruit, and tea.
Right, the source defines a balanced diet as eating different healthy foods, which she clearly does.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Ahmed's primary requirement for breakfast is simply anything sweet. He wants pancakes every day. He even admits his favorite childhood breakfast was literal cake.
Cake for breakfast.
Yeah, and Amina rightly jokes that his doctor is probably listening and shaking their head in despair. Though, interestingly, they do both strongly agree that they absolutely despise cold food.
Which is a funny little common ground.
Hmm.
But the contrast in their food choices perfectly mirrors their wake-up styles. Let's break down Amina's nutritious meal.
Nutritious meaning it provides what the body needs to grow and stay healthy.
Exactly. Her breakfast is designed for sustained metabolic stability. By combining complex carbohydrates from the toast with high-quality protein from the eggs.
And protein is the nutrient that helps build muscles, right?
Yes. By combining those, she is slowing down her digestion. This creates a slow, steady release of glucose into her bloodstream, keeping her energy, her actual physical strength to do activities, totally stable for hours.
That makes total sense. And what about Ahmed's cake?
Well, Ahmed eating pure sugar for breakfast causes an immediate massive spike in blood glucose. His pancreas has to panic and release a surge of insulin to bring that sugar down.
Which leads to a crash.
A massive blood sugar crash about 2 hours later. By 10 a.m., his brain will be entirely starved of energy. His appetite, that desire to eat, will just be completely out of control.
Wow. So when your brain is starved of energy, filled with sleep inertia from 5 snoozes, and hijacked by digital dopamine,
You're setting yourself up for failure.
yeah, you start getting what we call morning glitches. The source material shares some incredibly funny morning stories, but they are essentially brilliant case studies in what happens when we operate entirely on autopilot without a proper system in place.
Oh, the stories are fantastic.
Amina, despite her highly structured nature, recounts a day where she went out in public wearing 2 entirely different shoes.
And had everyone notice.
Yes, and Ahmed, in true chaotic fashion, talks about a morning where he brushed his teeth twice but completely forgot to eat his beloved sweet breakfast.
That's classic Ahmed.
And then his absolute masterpiece,
Yeah.
having a full 5-minute conversation with someone before realizing he was still asleep and dreaming the entire interaction.
What's fascinating here is how these glitches perfectly illustrate why the brain requires a defined routine to function safely before fully waking up.
What do you mean by safely?
Well, these glitches reveal a fundamental truth about human neurobiology in the morning. When you first wake up, your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for complex decision-making, logic, and matching your footwear.
Right, the important stuff.
Exactly. It's not fully online. It's essentially booting up in safe mode. This is why a solid routine acts as cognitive offloading.
Oh, I like that term, cognitive offloading.
Yeah, if you do the exact same things in the exact same order every morning, you rely on the basal ganglia. That's the part of the brain responsible for habit and muscle memory. You don't need your prefrontal cortex to make a cup of tea or put on the right shoes if the routine is automatic.
But wait, are these glitches actually a sign that we need a stricter routine? Or is it just proof that human beings are fundamentally not meant to do complex tasks, like choosing a matching outfit or scheduling our entire day before we've had a moment to just exist? Like maybe we shouldn't be making decisions before tea.
It's an important distinction to make. The transition state from asleep to awake is entirely natural, yes. But the environment we live in demands immediate, high-level functionality.
True, we can't just lounge around for 3 hours.
Right. We have jobs to get to, traffic to navigate, decisions to make. The source material ultimately argues that because our modern environment is so demanding, some level of intentional structure is absolutely necessary to breach that gap safely and mitigate the chaos.
Which leads us directly into their attempt to design the ideal morning, the blueprint.
The ultimate challenge.
Yeah, they discuss why establishing this structure actually matters in the real world, and their consensus is pretty clear. Waking up early with a plan makes them feel proactive and productive. Waking up late and scrambling makes everything feel rushed, and that stress just bleeds into the entire rest of the day.
So they lay out this ideal morning routine challenge step by step.
Let's hear it.
It goes like this. Wake up at 6 a.m. Drink water immediately. Make the bed. Stretch for 10 minutes. Completely avoid the phone.
Which Ahmed acknowledges is going to be incredibly difficult for them.
Oh, absolutely. Then eat breakfast, and finally, sit down to plan the day.
And they do this rapid-fire preference round in the source that highlights Amina's natural inclination for this exact system. She is a self-proclaimed early bird. She prefers waking up naturally without an alarm. She takes morning showers, drinks tea, and eats eggs. She is biologically aligned with this 6 a.m. blueprint.
She really is.
But Ahmed, on the other hand, is agreeing to this blueprint in theory, but he is clearly fighting his entire nature to try and achieve it.
Because he is fundamentally a different chronotype.
Right. So what does this all mean? If the source explicitly points out the difference between early birds and night owls, is this rigid 6 a.m. rule actually a productive baseline for everyone? Or are we just taking people like Ahmed and forcing a square peg into a round hole?
It's a great question.
Because it really feels like 6 a.m. is just a socially preferred artifact of the Industrial Revolution, not an actual biological imperative.
You hit the nail on the head. That is the exact flaw in the universal morning routine myth. Human beings have different chronotypes, largely dictated by genetics, such as the PER3 gene, which regulates our circadian rhythms.
So it's literally in our DNA.
Yes. Amina's internal clock naturally shifts earlier, making 6 a.m. feel restorative. Ahmed's biological clock likely shifts later. For a true night owl, forcing a 6 a.m. wake-up isn't a life hack. It's chronic sleep deprivation.
Wow, so it's actually harmful.
It can be. It induces higher cortisol levels and reduces focus, completely counteracting the very benefits the routine is supposed to provide in the first place.
So how does someone listening figure out their actual chronotype rather than just conforming to that 6 a.m. pressure?
A very concrete framework is to track your natural behavior when you have zero obligations.
Right.
Like on a long vacation when you aren't using an alarm clock and you aren't staying up late out of, revenge bedtime procrastination.
Right, when you're just living naturally.
Exactly.
Oh.
What time do you naturally fall asleep and what time do you naturally wake up? That window is your true biological baseline. The value of a morning routine isn't tied to a specific hour on the clock. It's tied to the intentionality of the actions taken once you are actually awake, regardless of whether that's 5 a.m. or 9 a.m.
And that intentionality really shines through in the final synthesis of the source material. Because the ultimate advice they extract isn't actually to be perfect. You don't have to suddenly transform into Amina overnight and start stretching in the sunlight.
No, not at all.
The key is just to start incredibly small.
Small biological wins. Wake up just a little bit earlier than you usually do to remove the panic. Drink a glass of water to rehydrate the brain after 8 hours of fasting.
Move your body in some way, even lightly.
Yeah, get the blood flowing. Eat something that isn't purely sugar. And, most importantly, avoid letting the algorithm dictate your emotional state for that first hour in bed.
The goal here for you, listening right now, isn't to suddenly become a morning superhero. It's to find a routine that is genuinely refreshing.
Right, something making you feel energetic and ready.
Exactly. One that actually gives you energy rather than draining your battery before you've even left the house. But there's a massive twist here, isn't there?
There is.
Because analyzing all of this raises one huge, unavoidable question based on how Amina and Ahmed actually operate. Amina stated clearly that her ultimate secret to waking up easily on the first alarm is simply, quote, sleeping early.
Right. And Ahmed openly admitted that his ultimate downfall, the absolute root cause of his 5 snoozes and his terrible mornings, is because he stays up late since YouTube exists.
So if you really look at the mechanics of human behavior, does the concept of a successful morning routine even exist? Or is everything we just discussed, the water, the stretching, the sunlight, entirely just the inevitable consequence of your evening routine?
That is the ultimate realization. The morning isn't a fresh start, it's a receipt for the night before.
A receipt for the night before. I love that.
If you don't put the phone down at 11 p.m., the 6 a.m. water and stretching doesn't stand a chance. Your prefrontal cortex won't have the energy to resist the snooze button, and the biological cascade of sleep inertia will dictate the rest of your day. We spend so much time trying to fix the end of the process Completely.
So tomorrow morning, when you feel like you've been violently yanked to the surface by that giant hand and the blinding reality of your alarm clock, don't just blame the morning. Ask yourself who really pulled you under the night before. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning those daily habits, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.